The reason I'm sanding it is just because when you stretch the fleece over it, you don't want it to be catching on rough edges.
It was at this moment he knew. He f***ed up.
Well, there goes the end of my fucking tripod. And my camera's smashed. Alright, so the hard part's done. And then I can start with the main face. Whatever I do with the supports, I have to make sure that they are not going to interfere with the faceplate or with the fleece that gets wrapped around it. So I gotta be careful. Mucho hot glue. I don't have a brad nailer, I don't have screws, I don't have all kinds of stuff. I don't have probably 90% of the tools that you're supposed to have to do this. My God, if you only knew how hot and humid it was in here. I'm dying. I drank like 3 gallons of water and I haven't took a leak once because I've sweated it all out. I'm beat. But yeah, regardless, I don't have the tools to do this. There's so many tools that I'm lacking on. It's absurd. I had a jigsaw that I had to borrow off the owner of this boat. And I'm still getting it done. A hot glue gun that doesn't work, and it's still gonna come out and look really good because I took time with the concept of it. I planned it out and spent like a half an hour just looking at it, bouncing back and forth, sketching out designs, placing the GPS around. A lot of it's in the thought process. You come up with a good idea and execute it. Sometimes there are many different ways to accomplish the same thing. Sometimes it's not the fastest or the easiest, but if it's all that you can do, then you still got to do it. This thing is going to come out flawless when it's done. I promise you. It is going to look so good. And once I patch all these holes up, sand it down, the whole boat, I can't remember if it's just the console or the whole boat is getting coated in a special liner, and it's gonna look sick. Absolutely sick. Alright, so it's a new day, picking up where we left off, and you remember what we got done here, the base template. I'm going to set up the faceplate and start hot gluing it in place. It's gonna take me a while messing around with the angles and whatnot. You pretty much just have to trowel on there and cut a piece of wood. If it's too short, cut another piece of wood. If it's too long, cut it down, you know what I mean? But you just gotta make supports so that thing is rigid, hot glue the ever living shit out of it, and then only after that can we wrap it with fleece. Alright, so that step is done. I have all the supports onto this little fiberglass thing that I'm building for the fish finder, and the next step is to stretch some fleece over it. In this case, I'm not using fleece. I'm just using a cotton t-shirt that's cut up. It'll stretch over it just fine. You just have to find a material that stretches both ways. You're way better off, and I will show you in this next clip exactly how to do it. You can either staple it to the back or hot glue it, but you just want to make sure that you work as many of the wrinkles out as you can. And if you cannot get a wrinkle out of it, try to put it in the area that's going to be least noticeable or where the wrinkle would be the shortest length. You'll see what I mean. Just follow along. Alright, so I've pre-fitted my fleece, my shirt, and I made sure that it stretches over this section. I'm just going to start off in one place, could start anywhere, it doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna lay a bead of hot glue down. Alright, so you want to stretch it up here nice and tight. Work the wrinkles out of it. Boom. Always make sure that your fleece is going to cover the corner. It's a little close right here, but by the time I stretch it, I'll have enough. And I surprisingly think that I'm going to be able to do this whole entire thing without having a single wrinkle, which usually if it's got a complex shape, that's not going to happen. Booyah. It's as easy as that. The next thing you want to do is come with a razor blade and trim off all the extra. Make sure you do not cut off the glue. There we go. Looks good. That's what it's going to look like from standing right here at the captain's wheel. Heck yeah, that looks real good. Now, it is time to mix up some fiberglass and get this thing coated in resin. Figure out about how much I need. You want to make sure it is 100% mixed up. If you're not thorough, you'll get a soft spot. And then if you go to grind it, it'll tack up your grinder wheel, fill it with junk or your sandpaper. You don't want to put it on too heavy for the first coat because it'll make it sag depending on how tight you've had that wrapped. And if you can, as a bonus, try to let your sweat drip in the resin. Helps it cure good. I like to make sure the edges and the top of it are really saturated. I have to mix up a little bit more resin, I think. Trying to think of how many layers. I'm probably going to put 4 layers of fiberglass chalk mat on the outside of this for this project specifically. If it was a sub box or something, and depending on how much boom booms your subs put out, you would have to put more, sometimes up to 12, even 15 layers. But for this, it's small, the sides are fairly short, and it doesn't really need to be real, it doesn't have to have a lot of structural integrity. So 3 or 4 good layers of fiberglass chalk mat, and I'll come back to this tomorrow once it's all hardened up and start the process again. Alright.